Welcome back, Twisters. Nick here, and I'm going to be predicting the 2021 Stanley Cup Playoffs, and I've already previewed each series before those series got underway, so if you want to see those in depth, I definitely recommend checking them out. I know I'm making these when Game 1 has been played for a few teams out there, but nonetheless, this is using the predictions I made for each individual matchup in the first round, and then we'll get all the way into the Final Four, and then I'll make my Cup champion prediction. I want to know your predictions down on the comments below. Let's have some fun down there, and without further ado, let's jump into this, okay? So what I'll do is recap my predictions for the first round for each division, and then we'll go into the divisional finals and take it from there. So we're going to start with the two matchups in the North Division. So I predicted the Toronto Maple Leafs to beat the Montreal Canadiens in 7 games. And then on the other side of the bracket, I have the Edmonton Oilers going into the next round, prevailing over the Winnipeg Jets in 6 games. In the Central Division, I have the Carolina Hurricanes over the Nashville Predators in 6 games. You got to tip the cap where it's due to Nashville to get into the playoffs. And in the battle for Florida, I did predict the Panthers to triumph over the Lightning in 7 games. So far, they're down 1-0. But man, that first game was unreal. One of the best playoff games I've seen ever, easily. And then in the East Division, the two matchups there, I've got the Pittsburgh Penguins over the New York Islanders in 6 games, so they would have to win 4 of their next 5. And this is even worse for me. I had the Boston Bruins over the Washington Capitals in 5 games. So literally Boston would have to sweep in order for me to be correct. They could still win the series though, nonetheless, I believe. And then out west, I've got the Colorado Avalanche over the St. Louis Blues. I've predicted them to win that series in 5 games. And between the Minnesota Wild and the Vegas Golden Knights, I did predict the Minnesota Wild. I have them winning in 6 games. So now we're going to turn it over to the North Division final. And that would mean the Toronto Maple Leafs would take on the Edmonton Oilers. And for this one, I believe that Connor McDavid will take his team to the next level, the furthest the Oilers will have gotten in 15 years in the playoffs. I've got them over the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I have a feeling that they could just overwhelm the Maple Leafs personnel with McDavid, with Draisaitl, with Mike Smith maybe outperforming Jack Campbell. We'll have to see there because Campbell's never started a playoff game going into the first round, that is. And I've got a feeling the Oilers are making a deep run this year. I got them winning this in 5 games. Now to our Central Division final. So we have the Carolina Hurricanes going up against the Florida Panthers. And for this one, I've picked the Carolina Hurricanes. To me, they match up very well against Florida. You look at the goaltending matchup, I think that Alex Nedeljkovic has certainly proven himself this year. And if you especially look at defensive talent, defensive depth, I think Carolina does have Florida beat quite handedly in that respect, and the forward groups I think are pretty neutral. I know that Coach Quenneville has a lot of coaching experience in the playoffs and quite a bit of success there, but I'm banking on Rod the Bod Brindamore to take the Hurricanes back into the conference finals. I have them also winning this series in 5 games. Our East Division final is a matchup of black and yellow teams, so we've got the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Boston Bruins, and for this series, I have predicted the Pittsburgh Penguins to move on and win the East Division. I have them winning in 7 games, certainly like the Jeff Carter acquisition. Jake Gensel is really the X factor when it comes to deep playoff runs. He's had a miraculous postseason career so far. Sidney Crosby had a miraculous season as well, and I think overall the forward group can favor Pittsburgh in this one. And of course, Jari is going to have to find a way to make some incredible saves to outduel Tuukka Rask, but I think the Penguins can get this done in 7 games. And lastly, in the West Division, we have teams with amazing reverse retro jerseys, the Colorado Avalanche and the Minnesota Wild. And for this one, I decided to go with an upset. I've got the Minnesota Wild prevailing in 6 games. It's not going to be easy when you've got Philip Grubauer, Cale Makar, Sam Girard, Nathan McKinnon, so much great personnel for the Avalanche. And I know Minnesota isn't the best matchup, they don't match up so favorably against Colorado, but I think that Dean Evison finds a way to get this done. The team has just played so wonderfully ever since he was behind the bench for them. So I'll take Minnesota to go on to the Final Four. So if you compare my regular season predictions before the season started, my top 4 teams, or my final 4 teams, consisted of this. So out west, I actually had Colorado winning the West. I had Carolina winning the Central. I had Washington winning the East, and that could still happen. And I actually had Montreal as a surprise team, despite being, I think I had them second in the division, but I had them winning that division. Not looking like it's going to happen, But nonetheless, those were the 4 teams in there. And of course, in my final four now, I have these 4 teams. So they'll be reseeded based on their regular season record. So at number 1 for me, that would be the Carolina Hurricanes. Second would be the Pittsburgh Penguins. Number 3 would be the Minnesota Wild. And number 4 would be the Edmonton Oilers. So it's not about where you finish in the standings. It's about your record/points percentage. So let's take a look at the final 4. So in our first matchup, we have the Carolina Hurricanes against the Edmonton Oilers. This would be an interesting matchup. You got 2 dominant, absolutely dominant players with McDavid and Draisaitl against a team that scores more by committee in the Carolina Hurricanes. And in this series, I am predicting that the Carolina Hurricanes will beat the Edmonton Oilers in 6 games. Nonetheless, a very, very nice run for the Oilers. Just a very consistent club that's building upon its successes, I would say, the last couple of years. But nonetheless, Carolina, just too much depth on defense with guys like, of course, Dougie Hamilton and Jacob Slavin, Brett Pesce, so on and so forth. Jake Bean was a nice surprise too. I think that they're a more complete club, and I think that Alex Nedeljkovic could outduel Mike Smith. So moving on to the Stanley Cup Finals, I have the Carolina Hurricanes. And our other semifinal matchup is the Pittsburgh Penguins against the Minnesota Wild. I guess you would call that the Bill Guerin Cup, per se. There's been a lot of mingling between these 2 teams. They're in separate conferences usually. So Minnesota versus Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, first time back in the conference finals since 2017. Minnesota, that would be their second trip to the conference finals in franchise history. And, I got to throw a bone to Minnesota sports, man. Other than the Lynx, no team has been in a championship game since the Twins in 1991. So I say the surprise of the playoffs is the Minnesota Wild going to the Stanley Cup Finals and prevailing over the Penguins in 7 games. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, 2021 Stanley Cup Finals, we've got the Carolina Hurricanes against the Minnesota Wild, the bunch of jerks against the state of hockey, and a fairly unusual cup matchup from what I would think most others out there would predict. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, look at all the, I would say, major media outlets out there. Who had the Carolina Hurricanes even go into the final? Huh? Well, anyway, guys, I had the Hurricanes as my preseason cup champion prediction. I'm going to stick with that. I say the Carolina Hurricanes defeat the Minnesota Wild in 6 games, but that's okay because the Minnesota Vikings will win the Super Bowl the next year. And Carolina will have their second Stanley Cup in franchise history. And we're going to give the Conn Smythe to a guy who is going to inject just a ton of output and a resurgence, I would say, in the goal scoring of Sebastian Aho, his teammate. So my Conn Smythe pick is going to be Teuvo Teravainen. So there you have it. I am sticking with my preseason cup champion prediction with the Carolina Hurricanes, and I want to know your predictions down in the comments below. Let's have some fun debate down there. Let's keep it classy if we can. And of course, stick around throughout the playoffs and beyond. I'm going to be putting out more content, so hit the like, hit subscribe, and the notifications bell. Check out the video description where you can find my social media handles for Twitter and, of course, the Twistagram. And make sure you check out our merch. I have a link to that there too. We've got toques and beanies, and we've got shirts, we've got stickers, and all that good stuff for the fine folks out there like yourselves. So thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Once again, I'm Nick. I'll catch you Twisters later. Enjoy the playoffs.